everybody, it's Drybear. The First Descendant devs keep hitting W's as they put out a brand new patch today and also did a full dev stream commenting on all the issues and what they're working on. They also ended the dev live stream with a screenshot of Ines Preview that shows off her electric ability. So this is her ability to send out these kind of little orbs, Tesla coils that zap the enemies. And they also had mentioned that in her gameplay, when you hit critical strikes, you can actually deal additional electric damage. So she might actually be a critical version of Bunny and have some other options there. Now, we don't know yet if she's going to have the mobility of Bunny, but we do know she is meant to be a mobber just like Bunny and does have electric. And it looks like they're going more distorted refraction kind of beam style, like Tesla coil style aesthetic with her, rather than just the true zap that you see with Bunnies overall. So let me know what you think about Ines and her ability being shown here down below. Also, there's some weird stuff going on in Albion. It's not related to the patch, I don't think, but Jesus, she's sideways and Haley's swimming. Things are happening. It's getting real weird in Albion today. The first big addition with this patch is going to be the random matchmaking option. So if you go to the infiltration operations and you go to your dungeons here, you actually will have the option to click this check mark down at the bottom. So what this does when you have this checked is it means that when you queue for a public operations, it will still give you the amorphous that you choose. It will still keep your difficulty setting. It will just randomly select another dungeon to run. So basically all this does, it's like an SOS flare from Monster Hunter. So when you have this checked and someone else is waiting on a queue for another dungeon that has the same difficulty as yours, you will be placed in their dungeon instead. So it gives you a little bit more variety. You can farm the same amorphous at the same difficulty for the same rewards, but it'll just give you more variety because you can randomly get other dungeons. The only downside with this system is that it currently does not work for the 400% dungeons because those are limited to one, there's only 2 of them, so it would be 50-50 anyways. So they decided to disable this for the 400%, but 250 and 100 for all the other dungeons. Like if you're trying to run Biolab to get Sharon's or things like that, you can run these, get the rewards, and then get the public rotating on the random matchmaking, which I think is a nice change. There's going to be obviously some improvements needed, but it is kind of like a nice way to flex up the rotation. Additionally, there were some balance updates overall regarding weapons. They have increased the amount of high power rounds that you start an encounter with from 5 to 15. This is actually massive. It makes a lot more viable options for the high power round weapons that normally would only have a small subset. And generally high power rounds, unless you're Enzo or Glay with specific builds around infinite ammo for that, you generally will see these very limitedly. But in this case, having just 10 extra rounds at the start, I think is going to be really cool. They also changed the base weapon spec of the next ultimate. So Afterglow Sword has had its basic ammo capacity increased to 12, Piercing Light to 11, Smitherings to 15, and Executor to 14. So you just have generally more rounds available, which might even just be enough for people to use them on normal characters in like intercept fights or even like the Infernal Walker fight, just because you have a little bit more ammo to play around with, which might be enough to get you to the point where you drop ammo and get ammo from that as well. They also made some massive balance updates to Restored Relic, Smithereens, and Executor. Some of these are just wild. So let's start with Restored Relic. The drop off or the fall off distance for Restored Relic has been decreased from 10%. So what this means, if you don't know what fall off is, for normal rounds like assault rifles, let's say, how far away you are, at a certain point the damage starts to fall off. The damage goes lower and lower the farther away you are. This is applied the same to explosions, so that the closer to the center of the explosion, the closer to 100% damage you take, and the further away from the edge, the less damage you take. It was previously a 50% fall off, which means it would go down to half damage at the very edge. They have decreased it to 10%, which means basically the Restored Relic is doing basically full damage almost all the time, because if you have the Restored Relic maxed out, it's going to be doing heat-seeking rounds all the time. So now Restored Relic has almost no damage fall off at all with this new change. They also made it so the explosion radius of Restored Relic has been almost doubled. So they brought the curve on fall off for Restored Relic to basically nothing and doubled its explosion radius. So this weapon is just going to be absolutely bonkers on a weapon that already heat seeks and doesn't miss that much anyways. So Restored Relic might be coming into the meta sooner rather than later. They also updated the crosshair recovery speed of Smithereens and Executor by 30%. This is a massive change because both of those weapons rely on hitting pellets consistently, either hitting all weak point or hitting all pellets without missing. So having the recovery speed of the crosshair much faster is going to be nice for those two. And lastly, they did a ridiculous buff to Smithereens. 62% firearm base attack. I was always saying the Smithereens was on the cusp of being one of the best weapons in the game already. It really just required you to hit weak points consistently, which isn't always possible and is difficult for some people, and so that kind of kept the weapon in check. But having a base go up by 62% means you could do like perma stagger, crazy damage builds with Smithereens on Weapon Glay and probably do ridiculous damage. So if you end up trying out Smithereens, let me know in the comments how it goes for you. They also fixed a bug in infiltration operations where if you are dying in them, it would constantly make the infiltration operations do like the mobs would get stronger and stronger and stronger. This was a bug which was preventing some people from playing the hard infiltration operations, but actually what it ended up doing is inspiring them to maybe keep this for later. So the bug has been fixed. If you die in hard infiltration operations, all the mobs won't get harder and harder and stronger and stronger, but they mentioned that they might bring this kind of mechanic back for the upcoming Void Erosion, which is their 30 tower climb, like 30 round tower climb that gets harder and harder. They said that they might, like maybe floors 20 to 30 has this mechanic, so you're punished for dying at the high levels as the enemies get stronger for doing so, but they didn't give like a permanent thing on that. They just said they might bring it back in the future. Another huge update. Previously, before this patch went live, if you finished a Void Vessel, you would actually get either all 4 Keelan chests or all 4 Fellow chests, which was a really unfortunate system design. It meant that like you would sometimes get like all Keelans in a row when you're trying to farm Fellow. I had like 6 Keelan boxes when I was trying to farm Fellow and vice versa. And oftentimes because they're all the same, they just have varying percentages, it just didn't feel very good. So with the update, you will now, when you finish a Void Vessel, get 50% Keelan and 50% of the Fellow. It'll change like which of them has the drop percentages on them, but at least no matter what, when you finish a Void Vessel, you can choose either Keelan or the Fellow, and with the target reward system, you can actually start farming those a little bit more effectively with every single Void Vessel rather than just hoping RNG is on your side. They also made some comments around the balance of Keelan and how he feels. A lot of players were saying that he wasn't as strong as they were expecting, and also the fact that his dashes were limited meant that he had a little bit more cumbersome gameplay. They mentioned that during their initial testing in the focus group testing, some people were doing a little bit too much with the dashing, and they were also, because it was possible to build Keelan for infinite dashes, they were just dashing upward infinitely and just going out of the skybox and into the open void. And so they actually put a limit on how many dashes that you can do for Keelan. They recognized that people would like to do this, and they said long term what they're going to be doing is putting in an altitude limit, so you can't go higher than a certain height with Keelan's dashes, and then eventually return to being able to have infinite dashes for him. And they're going to look to maybe do some buffs for him as well to make him feel more in line with some of the other Descendants. Now, this could also be just people having expectations around new Descendants, considering Haley came out completely busted and very strong, even without red mods or any bonuses, and Keelan just didn't hit that same mark. But let me know what you think about Keelan down below. They also made a pretty big update by allowing the infiltration operations at 400% to drop the heavy ion collector, the new material that you need for ultimate Sharon that you have to do 1 billion biolabs for. So having this as an option, I think is going to be great, considering the infiltration operations at 400% are excellent for leveling and getting materials, and also getting vouchers for spending at the vendor too, which all of that comes back together by allowing these to drop a little bit more frequently. They also mentioned that they are implementing a sanction for blocked players in matchmaking. Personally, I am not a fan of this direction, but they did mention in their dev stream that they're doing it. So what people have been complaining about is that if they block a player, like they just don't want to play with the player, they block them, it's still possible to randomly matchmake with that player and see them again. Though they can't talk to you, you still have to see them and play with them, which I guess if they don't like you, they could be griefing you, or you could be griefing them. They mentioned that they are actually putting in sanctions where if you block a player on a rotating update, they will make it so you can't matchmake with that player. Personally, I don't think this is a great direction, because not only does it encourage a little bit more toxic behavior, but it also limits matchmaking, meaning that if you're someone who blocks everyone, eventually you get left alone, or if someone is blocking you, it means that your matchmaking can eventually take longer as well, which is a very slippery slope and kind of odd. But let me know what you think about this sort of thing. I wish they didn't do this, and maybe they will end up just expanding the matchmaking if it takes too long. But I feel like with a fluctuating player base that goes up and down with seasons, at the low points it may be kind of slow for matchmaking already, and then having it so blocked players that have either blocked you or you blocked them or both won't show up in your matchmaking. It's going to make matchmaking even longer in that case, which could just exacerbate the issue overall. overall. And we'll just see, kind of have to keep an eye on this one and see what they continue to do. That's what we got for the update today. All these changes are live, and they've also just been doing a great job showing the updates. I think a lot of these changes are really big for the game overall. Being able to choose between Keelan and the fellow at the end of the Void Vessel is big. Getting more heavy ion collectors in the mix is a big change as well. And I think overall the game just keeps getting better with every update. But let me know what you're looking forward to with the coming updates, either after the holidays or with the new update for Ines Raya as well. If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.